in the Philippines, she is addressed by the simple phrase, the legend. May I introduce you to the legend Ninotchka Rosca. And when I read this, and when I spoke to Miguel yesterday, I said, Ninotchka is coming, and the first thing he said was, the legend. No. But you know, this really? So, enough flattering. You didn't come to Berlin to be flattered. You come here to present your work. And by jumping into your novel, The State of War, we can jump into all what has been said about history, about politics, and so on, by giving the first sentence of your novel. 12 hours after sailing from Manila, the ship dropped anchor 3 miles off the island of K, one of the thousands or so odd-shaped and odd-sized isles and islets dotting the central Philippine Sea. Why did you start your novel with sailing to an island?
It is a kind of homage to our ancestors who were said to have sailed from Borneo to the Philippines. That's the first. The second is that the Philippines is not a very big country. The islands are small. But the sea is vast. That's where we get our sense of hugeness, of being huge. That's why we go crazy when somebody says, this part of the sea is ours. No, it's ours. Because that's our sense of vastness, the blue, vast. We're small people, but we have a sense of vastness.
Ich fand diesen Anfang, diesen ersten Satz, der davon berichtet, dass Menschen, die nicht genauer genannt sind, mit einem Segelschiff zu einer Insel hinfahren, erstmal sehr anregend für meine Fantasie. Ein zeitloser Satz auch. Wer segelt da eigentlich? Und Ninotchka hat gesagt, das eine ist natürlich quasi die Erfahrung einer Inselgruppe, die eben auch durch das Segeln besiedelt worden ist. Und das andere, die umgebende See, gibt ein Gefühl der Größe. Und sie hat auch darauf angespielt, es gibt auch Konfliktpotenzial, wenn, wie die Chinesen das zum Beispiel tun, Teile des Meeres beansprucht werden als das eigene, wird die See plötzlich zu einem Konfliktfeld. I was wondering if by this sentence you were also addressing the colonial past of the Philippines, because the Spanish came by the sea.
Yes, the sea is both of benefit. It allows us to go into vastness, but it also brings danger to our shore. It brings the typhoons. We just finished one. It brought the Spaniards. It brought the Americans. It brought the British and the Dutch and just about everybody. I don't know if Germany ever made it to the Philippines.
We made it to China.
They didn't. I'm so sorry.
Naja, wir erinnern uns, im Jahr 1521 landete die von Magellan angeführten Expeditionsschiffe erstmals auf einer Insel dieses Archipels. Eine spätere Expedition im Jahre 1542 gebrauchte dann erstmals den Namen Las Islas Filipinas, um den spanischen König Philipp damit zu würdigen. Es waren nur einige wenige Inseln damit gemeint, aber dieser Name Philippinen bürgerte sich dann ein. Und man muss sich das mal vorstellen. Die Bezeichnung Philippinen, unter denen wir dieses Land bis heute führen, ist eine Fremdbezeichnung. Filipinas, Filipinos ist also das, wie die Europäer die Philippinen mal bezeichnet haben. Und das, was Ninotchka gerade gesagt hat, das Meer bringt Gefahren, bringt andere Nationen, deutlicher kann man und einfacher kann man Kolonialismus wohl möglich gar nicht beschreiben. The time in, you do not give the exact year in which your novel State of War takes place. There is a character called the Commander. It's probably an allusion to Ferdinand Marcos, the dictatorship in the times of the Philippines in the 1970s, 80s, to whom you felt a victim. You were a political prisoner, you went into exile, and you wrote a book about the late years of Marcos, The Fall of Marcos. This was published in 1987. This novel came out in 1988. So why would you, as you wrote a non-fiction book about Marcos, turn to fiction? What was possible for you to depict in fiction what was not possible in non-fiction?
No, this was finished before.
It was finished before, but published.
Before.
Yeah.
I published later.
Yeah.
Because American publishing houses were not very nice in those days to people who wrote in English who were not British or American. So you might consider that a barrier breaker. Yes, it was also the time when we broke the barrier in journalism, when I wrote the first cover story ever written by a Filipino for an American publication. It was a very good fight.
Yes. I will translate later. I read that you wrote this novel, State of War, out of a feeling of homesickness. Is that true?
This is true. I was stuck in Hawaii. I couldn't go home because they tried to arrest my younger sister who was going to Japan. They thought she was me, which was really, oh my God. You know, my younger sister, oh, she was totally not political. And she spoke in sign language. She was deaf. And so this was really, as you can see, I'm not deaf-mute. So this was really bizarre. I was on my way home, and my mother called and said, "Don't come home. They're waiting for you at the airport." And I was like, okay, and I was very homesick. And so I wrote State of War. Yeah. But there is something you must know about the sea.
Go on.
We have a tribe that really lives on the sea. And they dive and stay underwater for 5 minutes. They're the only tribe in the whole world who can do that. And the sea is named after them. Die Laot, meaning the far sea.
Das ist eine gute Überleitung zu den Figuren dieses Buches. May I introduce the audience to the characters, the main characters of your book? Da begegnen wir 3 Hauptfiguren. Adrian Banyaga ist der Sohn einer reichen Familie, hat gute politische Beziehungen. Eliza Hansen, die ist, wie es im Buch genannt wird, Verkäuferin von Sondergeschenken für Politiker. Das heißt, sie weiß, wie man Politiker besticht. Sie hat auch eine Beziehung gestiftet zwischen diesem Adrian Banyaga und einer Frau namens Ana Villaverde. Die ist eine Dissidentin. Kurz bevor die Romanhandlung einsetzt, ist sie gefoltert worden. Und sie ist im Kampf gegen die Regierung verwidmet und wurde, wie gesagt, gefoltert. Da spiegeln sich vielleicht Erfahrungen drin, die gerade angedeutet worden sind. Denn auch Ninotchka war politische Gefangene 6 Monate lang unter dieser Willkürherrschaft der Diktatur gefangen, war dann im Exil und hat, wie gerade gehört, und Sie konnten es an der Stimme hören, diesen Roman auch aus Heimweh geschrieben. 3 main characters. Who do they represent? What do we learn about from these characters? They once were called the 3 faces of Manila. What do they represent?
Adrian Banyaga. Banyaga means foreigner or foreign in the language. Anna Villaverde is green village. And Eliza Hansen.
Eliza Hansen, yeah.
Yes. Hansen is kind of German, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were actually based on real people. Yeah. Who were very, made some pivotal decisions while I was there.
Yeah. But as they all have a different background,
yes.
Could one say they symbolize the, let's say, the origins of the Philippine society, or the sources, or the people, where they come from? Malaysia, China, Caucasian.
A mix.
Mix.
Yes. We are mostly of mixed blood in the Philippines. Very few are pure Malays or pure. We have a few pure Spanish and pure Chinese, but mostly mixed. But it's I think it's better to look at these 3 as symbolic of how to maneuver in Philippine society. You know, you had Eliza Hansen, who was maneuvering by using her person, her body, her beautifulness. And you had Anna, who was maneuvering by being a dissident. And then you had Adrian Banyaga, the foreigner, even though he was not a foreigner, who was not even bothering to maneuver his way because he was born rich. Okay, so these 3 together, friends, and they had to deal with the commander.
Also 3 Arten sind im Grunde genommen dargestellt, 3 Arten, sich gesellschaftlich zu verhalten. Hinweis nochmal darauf, wie gemischt die Menschen von der Herkunft her in der Gesellschaft sind. Und sie segeln dann gemeinsam, they sail together to a cultural festival, the Ati-Atian Festival. This morning when we had a coffee together, you told me I should come to see that festival. What would I experience there, and why was that an ideal location to place your novel?
The Ati-Atian celebrates the gift of land to the incoming strangers from Borneo by the indigenous people. And they were so happy that they had a march and dancing in the street. So this is open every year. But there is a problem with it. because it's become very commercialized. So you have this tension between celebrating indigenous history and the aspect of turning it into capital so that town makes money. And this is the tension we have with our history. What do we do with our bedrock history? And it's always a tension. Yeah. I think I mentioned to you this morning, Mattel has come out with a doll based on one of our divinities, even though people don't realize she is a divinity, the Manananggal. This is the woman with the bat wings, splits her body and goes flying into the night. But Mattel has turned her into a very pretty, girl with earrings, lipstick, etc. So this is a little, on the one hand, people are saying, oh my God, our culture is recognized all over the world. But on the other hand, you say, it's not exactly like that. That is not the way we are. Because you lose everything about the Manananggal, the terror, the power, the mystery, they have all disappeared.
Dieses Fest, das alljährlich im Januar stattfindet, ist bekannt als die Mutter aller philippinischen Feste. Farbenfrohe Umzüge, Tänze, man kann als Fremder wird man sozusagen sofort aufgenommen. Unterschiede werden aufgehoben. Im Roman, wenn man so ein bisschen an Bachtin denkt, das ist sozusagen der Karneval schlechthin. Die etablierten Normen und Hierarchien werden aufgehoben. Deswegen ist das ein spannender Schauplatz zu lesen. Und Ninotchka hat gerade gesagt, es ist aber auch ein Beispiel dafür, wie die Kultur, die traditionelle Kultur auf den Philippinen kommerziell genutzt wird. Und sie hat als weiteres Beispiel genannt, dass diese Spielzeugfirma Mattel gerade eine Puppe rausgebracht hat, die einer philippinischen Gottheit nachgebildet ist. Eine philippinische Gottheit, die im Original Fledermausflügel hat, männermordend ist, wie ein Vampir mit Fledermausflügeln in die Nacht aufbricht. Aber bei der Mattel-Version hat die eine Handtasche. Und auf diesen feministischen Aspekt werden wir gleich noch hinweisen. The novel consists of 3 parts. First of all, we met these 3 young people going to the festival. Then, the second part takes us back, way back into the past, even into the times where the Spanish hadn't arrived. We meet a number of characters, amongst those a German about whom we speak later. And then, after this exploration of the past, which is written in even a different style, it has serial elements, hallucinatory elements, then we return through the past again. What is the idea behind this structure?
I have often said, and many people don't believe me, that the main character in any of my writing is time. This is very strange for somebody who grew up in a country with only 2 seasons. Our sense of time is very different from when you grow up with 4 seasons. You sense time passing. We don't in the Philippines. Everything is blue. And then it becomes black. And then it's blue again. That's the thing. And so my problem was how to bring the past to the present. Because everything is always the present. How to bring it to the present and have the present affect the past. I think they're just discovering this in quantum physics now, that the present can affect the past. So that was my problem. I should have been a physicist. But time is very important to me. Ja.
Unter den Figuren, die wir da treffen, sind so fantastische Charaktere wie eine Frau, die Heiligenbilder dazu bringt, auf Gebete zu reagieren. Ein Destillierer, der 42 Methoden des Genusses erfindet. Eine Dienerin, die den Lebensstil ihres Herrn bestimmt. Ein Junge, in den sich ein Saxophon verliebt. Und ein deutscher Chemiker, der nicht in der Lage ist, Bier zu brauen. Sie merken also, wie die Identitäten, wie sich da alles auf- und niederstimmt. Und wir erfahren in diesem Teil auch die Vorgeschichte von diesen 3 Charakteren. Und Ninotchka hat gesagt, in ihren Büchern ist Zeit eigentlich immer das, worum es geht. Unser Verständnis von Zeit ist natürlich, unterscheidet sich von dem von Menschen, die nur 2 Jahreszeiten kennen. Und sie hat auf die Quantenphysik hingewiesen, was man ja hier in Berlin auch gut in der Stadt von Planck auch gut machen kann, der das Wirkungsquantum erfunden hat, beobachtet hat, dass die Idee in ihrem Buch ist, dass die Gegenwart die Vergangenheit beeinflusst. Muss man sich nochmal vergegenwärtigen. How did this German chemist, who does not know to brew beer, made it into your book?
My family has been mixed with so many other races. My great-grandfather on the mother's side was a Spanish priest. And my younger sister married a German. And so I was just, I thought it would be really funny to have a German who cannot brew beer. We have this thing in common. We love beer. I was drinking beer at the age of 15, 7 bottles, 1 Blaue. Yeah, but also the German, if you will see in the book, is very passionate, which is unlike the image of Germany that we have, yeah. But he was crazy, very passionate, fell in love with the wife of his boss. And went crazy, but he kept trying to brew beer and failing. You have to read the book. I think one of the best passages in the book was when he and the wife got together in bed. One of the best.
Es geht deftig zu.
Page 115.
Man ist natürlich versucht, jetzt Ninotchka das Buch in die Hand zu geben, aber he's one of the characters, but also other fascinating characters are women who, before the Spanish came, were much more powerful in the Philippines. They dealt with golden jewelry. They dealt with the Chinese, for example. So there is this element of an alternative history in the book as well. Why was that important to you?
Well, when I was a kid, my aunts and my mother would come to the house once a month. They would have a meeting and have merienda cena. And I would hide under the table and pretend I'm playing with my dolls, but I was listening. Maritesing. And they would tell stories. And these are lost now because we have sent our women overseas. Mm-hmm. And so this kind of culture handing down has disappeared. And so I knew stories in my family where the women were really, whoa, you know, in power. Yeah. I remember when the Lorena Bobbitt case happened, I was speaking with Robin Morgan, one of the American feminists, and she asked me, what did you think of that? You know, Lorena Bobbitt cut. Yeah. And I said, oh, what is so unusual about that? One of my aunts did that. And Robin Morgan went, what? I said, it was done. So those things. But it's very sad that this power is now hidden. Mm. You know, it's hidden. And that's why in the elections of 2022, we had everybody saying, oh, Leni Robredo, she's woman, very weak. You're wrong.
In diesen Rückblicken, in diesem zweiten Teil gibt es auch sehr faszinierende Schilderungen einer Priesterin Babylon, die Handel betreibt mit Goldschmitten, mit den Chinesen, eine mächtige, einflussreiche Frau. Und das ist sozusagen wie ein Fingerzeig zu dem, was Ninotchka gerade gesagt hat, die Geschichte von Frauen, die eben nicht aufgeschrieben worden sind, sondern mündlich tradiert worden sind, in Familien erzählt worden sind, Geschichten, weibliche Geschichten, die eben verloren gegangen ist. Und der Hinweis auf die amerikanische Feministin ist natürlich auch Ausdruck davon, dass Ninotchka Rosca eine Ikone des Feminismus verbunden ist mit Gleichgesinnten auf der ganzen Welt. Two last questions.
Sound better in German. I should learn German.
What does the legend do now? Living in Manila, having returned, what does one do as a legend?
I always say I should be retired and be sipping margaritas, you know, frozen margaritas served by really good-looking men.
That's what we do tonight.
But unfortunately, no. My entire generation is passing on. And so everybody is like sitting down and writing an account of his or her life, bio here, bio there. And everybody is saying, are you going to write your biography? Every month I get a note. When are you going to write your biography? And I finally said, okay, you will never see a biography like this. It won't be like, on this day and on that day, it will be a mytho-biography. Legend, after all, yeah?
And in this mythobiology, Thomas Mann will play an important role. When did Thomas Mann came into your life?
Oh, I was maybe 10 years old. I was maybe around 10 years old, and I was starting to write. But, you know, I was such a kid, nobody would teach me how to write. So I started reading Thomas Mann. I came up on, it's very strange when I was growing up, when I needed something about literature, a book appears in our house. I have no idea how it happens, but suddenly there's a book, just what I needed. And so first, it was a collection of short stories, and I read Death in Venice. And I went, oh, He did this, he did that, and he turned this around. I was learning from the perfect short story, perfect. And then Buddenbrooks came. Buddenbrooks, time, rise and fall, yeah, time. And then after that, I read Joseph and his brothers. The whole stuff. Yeah, I read The Magic Mountain, everything. But one time I was being asked by the Dutch, who was your favorite writer when you were young? And I said, Thomas Mann. And they said, that's a very strange thing for somebody who's on the other side of the world. But there was something that Thomas Mann wrote, which stayed with me through all the years. He was describing himself as being the person who walks on the street at night and looks through the windows of all of these bourgeois houses and sees this perfectly normal family having dinner, and he's outside looking in, and he is so envious because he was never gonna be one of them. When I read that, I said, that's me. I will never be one of them.
Mhm. Dieses schöne Bild, das Thomas Mann mal gebraucht hat, dass er sich fühlte wie jemand, der nachts durch die Straßen geht und reinschaut in die Häuser, die Menschen, die da sitzen, beobachten, mit dem Gefühl, ich werde nie einer von denen sein. Und wahrscheinlich wissen Sie es, es ist ja dieses Jahr 150. Geburtstag, 70. Todestag von Thomas Mann. Auch der hatte eine besondere Beziehung zum Meer. Volker Weidermann hat ja gerade das Buch geschrieben, Thomas Mann und das Meer. Und auch Thomas Mann, der deutscheste aller Schriftsteller, hatte ja eine Mutter aus Brasilien, deren Hautfarbe mit Karamell beschrieben worden ist. For somebody who has experienced the power of literature in early years, we were talking about this morning, except writing your autobiography, which will be like no autobiography before, I tried to explain what the blue sofa is, which was kind of a metaphor, whatever. And you said you have the plan to found a children's library. Wouldn't that be the perfect furniture in a children's library in Manila, the blue sofa? We can ask Helen if there is another copy. Maybe it's...
Why not?
Really, because I built a very small glass house, which is insane, in the Philippines, in a working class neighborhood. And so the working class neighborhood, they live with their brother's family, their sister's family, so they build on every inch of land. And then there's my house, which is like this small house of glass and with a garden. So the whole neighborhood comes to look at the house. But I noticed the children, they don't have books. The whole neighborhood built a church. And I'm like, And so I said, when I come back, I will build a reading library. Yeah. I don't have a library myself because I give away my books, you know. So this is, I will name it the blue sofa.
Wouldn't that be a fantastic new campaign? Blue sofas all around the world for children's libraries. Here is the idea, and that proves that this lady is a legend. Thank you ever so much, Ninotchka Rosca.